Good afternoon. This is Quianna, and in this video today, we are going to be going over some of the arguments that Brandon Tatum has made in his debate with Dr. Rashad Richey. Now, I've been encountering some issues with transnational organized crime groups that are working on the behalf of governmental figures. So, what they've done is that they've actually preventing me from being able to screen share and make commentary when I'm trying to comment on particular YouTube videos. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to put a backdrop of uh, the video that I'm commenting on, and I am just going to give you my arguments and what is being said in that video. So first off, in this debate between Dr. Rashad Richey and Brandon Tatum, is that Brandon Tatum believes that the force used against Sonya Massey was justified. He said he feels that uh, her unalivement wasn't justified, but the force used against Sonya was justified. But the method of force that was used that Brandon Tatum justifies was the use of force that ended her life. So, in essence, Tatum is saying that the actions that the officer have taken in this particular situation was reasonable, and those actions were lethal use of force. Now, what Tatum does is he doubles down on these arguments and says that Sonya threw a pot of boiling water at the officer. But when we review the footage, and what I've done is I've actually gone to Tatum's channel and looked at the evidence and looked at that slowed down version that he provided on his channel. And what I've come to understand is that what he's trying to do is to squeeze blood from a turnip. Now, we know that when Sonya said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," what followed was that Grayson took his firearm out of the holster, pointed it at Sonya, and threatened to unalive her. What happened from there is that Sonya crouched down to the ground. Now, even in this interpretation that Tatum provides for us of Sonya Massey crouching behind the counter doesn't vindicate the officer and doesn't support his conclusion that she threw a pot of boiling water. If that were the case, we would have seen Sonya's hands go into this motion, or we would have seen a pot of boiling water coming from over the counter. So, for example, if she threw the pot of boiling water at the officer, we would have actually seen a pot coming onto the camera, and we never see that. And the reason why we don't see that is because Sonya didn't throw a pot of boiling water at the officer. Now, it makes no sense that Brandon Tatum provides this argument for us, or this justification for us, when Sonya, what she does is she crouches down behind the counter. When she crouched down behind the counter, essentially what Sonya did was she retreated from the particular situation. She retreated from this violent encounter. So there is a lot of explanations that I feel that Tatum is ignoring and refusing to acknowledge. One is that maybe her crouching down behind the counter, and there were, as probably, I mean, we're not behind the counter, but there could have been other stuff that was behind the counter that was down there, and that could have gotten into the way. Maybe she crouched down and there was like one of those little stools there. We don't know, but there could have been something there that could have moved that pot of boiling water. But we don't ever see Sonya thrusting a pot of boiling water at neither officer. Again, if the officers were in fear of their life in this particular situation, then they had a number of ways in which they could have dealt with this particular situation. And one was they could have actually left the home. They were trying to do that anyway. If we watch the footage, an examination of the footage demonstrates that the officers were trying to leave on multiple occasions. So if they were trying to leave on multiple occasions, what stopped them from leaving on this occasion? Why did they feel the need to stay in there and unalive this poor woman? So again, that was an option that was never considered in this particular situation. And we know, according to international standards of human rights when it comes to law enforcement, that law enforcement is supposed to pursue nonviolent means first before they even pursue any violent means. So it's quite unfortunate that these officers, that Grayson, what he would do is he would result to lethal use of force before considering uh, maybe restraining her with handcuffs or using a differentiated approach, such as maybe zip ties or holding her, or if this he felt that this was necessary, or if it was necessary in this particular situation. And we understand that in this particular situation that it wasn't necessary. Now, another argument that is being raised in this particular debate is that Sonya Massey had a mental health condition, which we all acknowledge. And uh, what Tatum is bringing up is her phone call from the previous night. But, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we need to use context clues. Now, there was two windows that were broken out of a vehicle, and there was glass on the pavement. This was an indication that there was a burglar in the area. Now, is it within the realm of possibility for the burglar to leave that day that that car was broken into and to come back into the neighborhood and to check doors? Yes, that's within the realm of possibility, because oftentimes people that commit crimes, and that's not everyone, but most, there is evidence, a large body of evidence that shows that people that commit crimes often return to the scene of the crime. So is it within the realm of possibility that a burglar could have returned to the scene of the crime and tried to get into Sonya's house? Yes, that is within the realm of possibility. It's within the realm of possibility that he could have tried to open her door or get into her door. Her lights came on and he could have fled the scene of the crime. That is within the realm of possibility. And that could have been a situation that occurred, uh, which resulted in Sonya calling law enforcement and having them come out on the scene. But we don't know that because law enforcement officers never asked her that question. They automatically assumed that her testimony was invalid because she was a person who was struggling from mental health conditions. So therefore, they were of the opinion that her being victimized was illegitimate, that her testimony, anything that she could have said that night, wasn't an accurate depiction of what may have occurred before they arrived. And that's quite unfortunate. Now, Tatum believes in this particular situation that uh, there is self-defense, that the officer is going to be exonerated or charges are going to be dropped because he was defending himself. This argument is flawed because, first, in order to raise a self-defense argument, there needs to be imminent danger, and there wasn't any imminent danger in this particular situation. When the person retreats, that actually takes that self-defense argument off of the table. And to give you an example, let's say, for example, you have two people that are arguing. Two people are arguing, and one person is squaring up to the other person. And the other person decides that this person may be just too big for them, that they can't take this person down. So they run across the room and they hide behind a trash can, or they hide behind a chair or a desk. Now, the moment that they run and they hide behind that desk or that trash can and they crouch down, that is retreating from that particular incident. There is no imminent danger there. And therefore, that takes that self-defense argument off the table. When that person goes over to that person who is retreating and attacks them, that is a violation of the law on part of the aggressor. And in this particular situation, Grayson was the aggressor. Now, it's unfortunate that Tatum, because he sounds like a very smart individual, his argument is cool and calm, but it just doesn't have any rationale to it. And again, in this particular situation, Grayson's fear was irrational because Sonya was a very small woman. She was meek. She wasn't combatant. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't uh, belligerent. She wasn't throwing any objects across the room. She wasn't throwing water across the room. She wasn't threatening to throw any water across the room. She wasn't threatening to attack the officers. She wasn't doing any of those things. Basically, what she did was she retreated because she was in fear of her life. And her testimony before she did that supports that conclusion, because she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And when a person says, I rebuke you, basically they're talking about some evil force that's in their presence that they feel is threatening to them. So if anything, Sonya felt that she was being threatened in this situation, felt afraid for her life, and crouched behind the counter. So the arguments that Tatum wants to make to exonerate this officer is illegitimate, and of course it doesn't hold any weight. And last but not least, now there are a number of people that are bringing up Sonya Massey's mental health condition. And if we are going to put this into the equation, then we also need to put into the equation that Grayson unalived her because he had a dislike for people who had mental health issues, which is, in my estimation, a hate crime. And the evidence to support that is that Grayson called Sonya a crazy bee before he unalived her. This is was his statements about Sonya before he unalived her, was that she was, his words, a crazy bee. And again, this was his perception about this woman. Now take that and replace that with another epithet or another slur or another situation. So we can all think of statements that men may say against women, or statements that heterosexual people may say against transgender people, or heterosexual people may say against homosexual people. Or we can think of words and slurs and epithets that anti-Black people say against Black people. And when those are stated in the commission of a crime, in the commission of assault, in the commission of what we saw was the lethal use of force, what we can conclude from that is that this person had a passionate dislike and disdain for people with mental health issues, and that, again, this disdain and dislike was reason for him to unalive her in his rationale. And that rationale is none other than a hate crime. So I hope that the prosecution in this case is considering hate crime charges against Grayson for, this biased motivation against people with mental disabilities. And I also hope that Benjamin Crump is going to be considering this as well. Now, this has been my analysis and evaluation of the arguments that have been made in Brendan Tatum's video and debate with Dr. Rashad Richey. Again, I think that Tatum is just taking the side of law enforcement because he is an ex-officer. And although Tatum does acknowledge that Sonya didn't have to die, that her losing her life was a really bad thing. What makes it worse is that he supported the position of the officer, that he attempts to exonerate the officer when all the actions demonstrate that the officer action was against domestic standards, international human rights law standards, and was really bad policing and cost a young woman her life. So you can go and watch that video on Rashad Richey's channel. You can also watch that interpretation, that slowdown that Tatum provides on his channel. But again, I looked at that slowdown a number of times, and I didn't see Sonya throwing a pot of water at Grayson, nor did I see a pot come from behind the counter, nor did I see arms being slung from behind the counter, nor did I see water spilling across the floor. If any water did spill across the floor, it was likely because there was some movement behind the counter and not because Sonya threw the water at Grayson. Again, she had an opportunity, if that was going to be her course of action, to douse Grayson with water while he was standing and while she was standing. The two were standing. There was a space there for that interaction to occur, and she didn't do that. What she did was she crouched down behind the counter. Now, these arguments that people are making, I've heard this argument before about, water being thrown. Someone actually one time before at Kenzel Road Accommodation Center, I actually accidentally was coming through the door at the same time a person was coming through the door, and that person said that I spilled water on them. So I can understand that these arguments can be illegitimate and don't hold up when we have other evidence showing that the situation was quite differently. And in this situation, it definitely demonstrated that Sonya did not throw a pot of boiling water on Grayson. So there's going to be more videos that I'm going to do interpreting these situations and giving commentary on these particular incidents. Again, you can follow me at Real Quianna Canada, at Real Quianna Canada. You can also subscribe to this channel. That is my handle. You can also follow me on my Twitter account at Quianna_Canada. Again, my Twitter account is Quianna_Canada. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.